I am a military brat. My mom was Air Force, dad was Army, so I traveled a lot when I was younger. I've lived overseas, Germany, we went there twice, stateside, but San Antonio is the place I lived the longest. So when people ask me where I'm from, by default, I say San Antonio because I've lived here the longest. But I was born in Oklahoma City. As a kid growing up, I was the quiet, shy one, really into school, very smart. But I was a little more advanced than the rest of my peers, so I would always finish before everyone else and just be sitting there like, need something to do. But I stayed in the books. English was one of my strong suits. I started writing poetry around 12. I've had one small poem published in a book through poetry.com. I don't know if that's still around to this day. But that's one of my hobbies, poetry. I sing, dance a little here and there, rap a little here and there. So I model as well. My alter ego or artist name would be Lazari Kane. It's hard to talk about yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, because sometimes it's just where you get started.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's kind of like I'm jumping around, but trying to think. Hobbies. I think that's.
Sure. You kind of touched the base a little bit on, kind of you in school. Can you talk a little bit about, what your upbringing in sense of, the family around you, the description of your family, as well as maybe your earliest influences on kind of navigating through that?
I have a older half sister from my dad's previous marriage. 8 years older. We never lived together, so I was the only child basically growing up. So it was kind of hard making friends because just always being by myself and my parents both being active duty military. I was basically what you would call a latchkey kid. So it was always, I woke up with them there, but by the time I got home from school, they were still at work. So if I wasn't at home by myself, for a while I did after school activities like gymnastics and some daycares, but of course as you get older, prices change, and so that didn't happen that much. But that's where I would get my social interaction from, but it was just like, okay, I'm only doing it because I have no choice. I'd rather be to myself in the books, reading or doing something, just me by myself, because that's just how I was. But education was really driven by my parents. They never wanted anything less than a B in the house. So the first time I got my first C devastated me, and that wasn't until high school. I went to one of the hardest high schools here in San Antonio, Health Careers, and they're basically already giving you college work straight from 9th grade. So they're like, well, did you apply yourself? Did you, actually study, all that? I'm like, yeah, I did. They're like, okay, well, it's okay this time. I was like, wait, what? Like, you're throwing me for a loop. Any other time, it's like, no, you gotta write me a book report on something to make up for that bad grade. And that time I was like, oh, okay, I don't like this. I'm gonna push myself even harder. That was the only time that I got anything low until I hit college. But then life happens when you're in college, so.
Sure.
My dad was one who liked numbers. He was good with math, so math became one of my favorite subjects early on, but that quickly changed. It went to English because me being by myself a lot, I would entertain myself, which allowed me to write a lot of stories. And I'm a visual person, so I could elaborate and put myself in a different world or bring others into a different world just by writing. So I was always reading something, reading a book. I was reading like 400-page books in 5th, 6th grade. Yeah. English was like, that was my subject. I was in honors English starting in 6th grade, all the way up until my senior year of high school. So English, that became my thing. So that's where the whole poetry thing came into that. But my mom didn't really like my poetry. So, yeah. But education has always been my parents' main driving force to keep me going. Because my dad told me early on that I've already come into this world with a couple strikes against me, one being a female, one being black. So I needed to make sure I stood out, and not for the wrong reasons. So make sure I had something to fall back on aside from just a hobby. Be educated. That way you know what's going on and you don't get taken advantage of. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about after high school, college, where you went, and where you currently are in life, and then we'll go into the next part.
Okay. For college, I attended Northwest Vista Community College. I started there the summer after I graduated. Well, technically my senior year because I was doing dual credit. So started off there. Then I went off to Mary Hardin Baylor out in Belton. I only did a year there. I really didn't like the school. My mom wanted me to go there, so she was paying for it. I had no choice, but I wanted to go to Tarleton State University. I was going for nursing. Life happens. I ended up coming back here to San Antonio to go to Northwest Vista again to just stay closer to home, and ended up having to drop out again a couple years later after I had my kids. And as of right now, I am in the process of getting some information so I can come here to St. Philip's to start their LVN program so I can finish what I started so many years ago.
Yeah. You mentioned you had kids.
Yes, I have 3.
Okay.
I have 2 girls, 1 boy.
Oh, okay. Great. How old are they?
The oldest will be 12 this year. Is she 12? Yeah, the oldest. Mommy brain. Yeah, she'll be 12 this year, so she's 11 now. And then my middle child, she is 10. She just turned 10 last month. And my baby boy will be 6 this year.
Yeah. And in coming in, and you had mentioned, wanting to kind of maybe rekindle that initial interest in getting back into school and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Is the kid? Are you married right now, or
No.
Is the kid, are you currently just a single parent at the moment?
Single parent at the moment. My daughter's father, my ex-husband, not around. He's not that far. He's in Houston, but he's not around. And my son currently lives with his dad. That was something that we both decided would be better for him. I mainly made that decision because me being a black female, I cannot raise a black male to be a black male. I can only teach him so much, and I figured that it would be best for him to be with his father so he can learn the male side of things. I don't know the male side. I just know the female side, and that was my biggest issue. It's like I don't have a consistent male role model for him right now, so go with your dad. That would be better than anything else. I mean, my daughters, they have my dad, and they have their brother's dad. We consider him the honorary dad because he was around from the time that they were like 2 and a year and a half, and those are the only two that they really know. So they have a father figure, but as far as teaching my son how to be a man, I feel that his father would be the better choice at this point right now.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And then this kind of jumps into the crux of it. So, wonder if you can tell me a little bit about how you kind of heard of the study project, the oral history project we're doing here, and then why did you feel the need to maybe tell your story or participate in the project? So you can talk a little bit about that.
I actually saw it on Facebook. The one media, the one TV, they had mentioned it on Facebook, and I was like, oh, that looks like something I might be interested in talking about. And then the CEO of the company that I work for, Street Legend, was like, hey, we're always out here doing stuff for the community. Let's go help out. Let's tell our stories. We all have stories to tell. Let's go tell them. Like, let's do it. Let's bring more awareness to what we've experienced and what we still are experiencing at this day. So that's how I've.
Yeah, I'll then kind of probe that a little bit more. Was there a specific story or stories or experiences that you felt that in coming here, I really want this to be heard. I really want to kind of talk about this, and I'll kind of let you have the floor on that.
The one story that I can think of that stands out the most to me was my freshman year of college. I lived a shelter life for the most part, didn't really go out, party or anything like that, again, in the books or in church. And for my graduation gift, my parents got me a car, which I still have to this day, still running good. And of course, it wasn't in my name, it was my mom's name, and I was on her insurance. And one night, the college had a campus bowling activity. So Belton doesn't have a bowling alley. We had to go across the highway to Temple. So it was me and 3 other classmates of mine that decided to go. And then also with Belton, it's a small, especially with that school, it's not really diverse. So pretty much we all knew each other. It was like, hey, are you going? Okay, you're going, I got a car, you don't have a car, I'll drive. So it was a carpool thing, and so we're all going there. We went to the event ended, I wanna say probably about 11, maybe 12. We had curfew, so of course it ended before curfew. And we were taking I was driving us back, and this one particular road that we were driving on has no lights, and I have astigmatism, so I'm always cautious at night. And I'm driving, I'm not even driving that fast. I don't remember what the speed limit was, but next thing I know, I see lights, and I'm like, "Ooh, okay, where did this car come from? Because we didn't see anyone behind us, didn't see anyone in front of us, but all of a sudden there's lights." And I'm like, okay, I've never been pulled over before. I'm about to get in trouble by my parents. I'm freaking out more so about my parents finding out at this particular moment. I pull over. My friends were like, just calm down, keep your hands, visible. Don't do nothing until you see the cop walk up. And they tell you to do something. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, does everybody have their seatbelts on? They're like, yeah, we're good, we're good. So he tells me to roll down the window and, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, no, sir, I don't. Oh, well, you were speeding. I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that I was. He was like, well, you were. I was like, I can't even see, so why am I going to speed down this road that I don't even know? So he asked for my license and registration. I handed that to him. He proceeds to go back to his car. Mind you, he's already looking in the car, sees 4 black kids and a brand new car. My dad had just washed it. It hadn't rained or anything, so it's a spanking brand new car. I'm pretty sure he was thinking it was us joyriding, then stole a car or something of that nature. He comes back and he was like, so whose car is this? It's my car. Well, how can you prove that? My mom bought it for me. Well, what's your mom's name? So I told him, so, well, whose insurance is it? I'm on my mom's insurance. Well, where's her name at? You have the insurance card. Like, why are you questioning whether or not it's my car? I'm 18, so I legally, I don't know if I could or couldn't, but I wasn't able to pay for the car, so my name wasn't on it. The one paying the bill, that's who the car's name was in. Why are you asking me all these questions? It's my car. I'm giving you proof that it's my car. I'm giving you the registration, insurance, all that. You have all of that. I'm answering everything that you're asking me, thinking that I done stole this car. I'm giving you all of the information. Mind you, me and my mom had the exact same car. The only thing that was different was the VIN number. So he was like, well, which car is this one? I was like, mine ends in, this one. He was all, okay, well, what are you doing out this late? I'm leaving a school event. Well, what event? What school? I have a sticker, the parking permit sticker on the back end of the car. I showed him my school ID. He proceeds to ask for everybody else's school ID. Like, why are you hounding us? We're leaving a school event. You see all these other cars. Like, you can follow us to the school. You can call the school. We're leaving a school event. And finally, he just left me off with a warning. And I was just sitting there. I was like, really? I didn't, as much as I wanted to talk back, I didn't talk back. I knew to be respectful, but you're asking me all these questions you have the answers to right here. I'm not giving you any problem. You just want to sit here and assume that we're out joyriding at 11:30 at night because it's a car full of black kids. And we're literally 2 miles from the school. And you, for whatever reason, decided to pull us over. And that's one thing that stood out to me ever since. Like, prior to that, I don't think I ever really dealt with any type of, real racism. Me personally, I don't really see color. I see you for who you are. Your race doesn't really matter to me. Of course, there are times when it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to deal with you because I've had bad experiences from others, but at the same time, I'm going to fill you out first. And then if I still get that vibe from you, okay, I'm just not going to deal with you. But it's not necessarily because of your race. It's because how you're acting at that point reminds me of something that was negative, and I just don't want to put myself in that position again. But it's not necessarily because of your race. I don't see color first.
Thank you for sharing that. Just wanted to kind of ask, kind of going forward with that, what impact did this event kind of have on your life at the moment you were 18. And so, from at that moment, as well as kind of going forward even till today, that you feel the need to be able to share some of this story. So, still having memories of that and that having an impact. So if you can talk a little bit about what impact you had on your life at that moment as well as now, and how you kind of now reflect back on that event.
When it comes to cops, they're supposed to be here to serve and protect, not harass, not make assumptions without really getting the information. So whenever I get pulled over, it hasn't happened in a while, but whenever I do get pulled over, I'm already on edge. I'm just like, okay, well, what is this one gonna say? Are they gonna find anything? Have I done anything? Have I taken care of everything? Yeah, I have, but they can still see my history, like, are they gonna be nice about it? The fact that I'm a female, are they gonna assume that I'm gonna try and cry my way out of it? Show some skin, bribe them, whatever, just because I'm a female. When they see that I'm black, are they gonna automatically assume that I'm a threat to them? Like, I'm on edge all the time. Prior to that, I heard the stories, but I was like, that was probably, a fluke. Like, I never experienced it prior to that. Once that happened, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is real. This can really happen. And right now, this day and age, it has me scared for my son. Like, even more so. Because to me, they're targeting us even more, especially our black men. And I'm afraid of what's gonna happen.
So you had mentioned, like the moment something like this had happened, you're like, oh crap, like, what if my parents find out, things like that. Did you share this story with anyone, like that was outside of that moment, outside of that car, who experienced that, like whether it was other friends or even your parents? Did they ever get to talking about it, or your husband or anything like that? Have you ever shared this experience?
Yeah, I eventually told them. I think I waited a day or two. I waited to see if, since he gave me a warning, I was like, is it going to go against the insurance? If it does, I'll get a phone call from my mom about it. But I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and tell them, because they know, like, I had already told them I was going to the event. So they knew that the school has a curfew and that they wouldn't have the event last longer than the curfew time. So I eventually told them a few days later, and they were like, yeah, it happens. You got to be careful, but at the same time, you didn't do anything wrong, but just be even more cautious because of the simple fact that you're in that town. You see what the ratio is. Granted, you have Killeen right there, and you have Temple, but you were heading back to Belton. You're in Belton. Just, be cautious, but at the same time, stay on your P's and Q's and comply as much as possible. But don't deter from who you are and from what we taught you. Just be you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned, concern for your son, and this event kind of speaking volumes to that, and the things that he may face. And so, in light of how how much of an issue and how much of a spotlight is now on the issue of police brutality, as well as treatment of black men, black women, black bodies, and this whole issue. Where does the concept of justice play in for you? Whether it is someone who experiences something like you did, and fortunately nothing, came about it, beyond that, whether it could have escalated beyond that. But how do you kind of see, now working in the community as you do, how does this concept of justice play in when you think about what happened, or going forward if something like that does happen? How do you seek justice, and then how do you seek to also be able to promote justice in light of this experience?
Everyone just has to be more aware. I know they teach them how to diffuse situations, but this side of town, whenever they see a black person, do they really try to diffuse a situation? To me, I don't think they do. I understand, fearing for your life, but sometimes do you really have to go to the extremes of shooting them? I know they teach them shoot to kill, but do you really have to shoot them first? Can you try and use the taser? They do issue guys, tasers as well. But the key to me is awareness. Like, if you're so afraid of this community, come be around the community to see what it is that we face, how we see things. When we see you, not speaking, as far as cops go, it's not always pleasant. I mean, it hasn't really been pleasant for our kind for as long as I can remember. But we try not to look at you guys that way. We try to give you the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, if you initially are coming at us, excuse my slang, sideways, then okay, we're gonna feel some type of way and kind of match the energy that you're giving us. But the only way, to me, for there to be any type of justice is to bring more awareness, like just come together. But that also means that we have to start speaking up more and allow us to speak up and not criticize us or judge us or penalize us for speaking up. Communication's key. That's what I feel. Communication and awareness is key.
So kind of just taking that in terms of what you said, if we were to be able to put that out in real world action and whatnot, and putting this together, how would that kind of look? Because some folks will probably, some folks advocate for more intensive like diversity immersion or training for officers, things like that. How would you, keeping the community in mind as well, how would you envision something like being able to, whether it's the local police department or officers that are in charge of patrolling a neighborhood, whatnot, bringing them into the community in a way that won't, because there will already be kind of those underlying, that underlying discomfort with some community members, with like cops, and the cops maybe like, seeing some of the community members or whatnot. Is that, how would you envision something like that, maybe playing out as it would be like a block party or something like that? How would you kind of see that as coming through conversations, things like that?
If I'm not mistaken, they used to have a lot of black block parties over the summer here in San Antonio. I think that could help, but then at the same time, like if they do like a basketball tournament, like cops against the neighborhood or something. That could work, but at the same time, it may not because, heated arguments, not so friendly court, can't take losing. This day and age, back then, it was okay, but now I don't know if that would work out too well. But maybe they could implement like ride-alongs for civilians that aren't going through the police academy or something like that. That way, we can actually see what they face on a daily. Maybe have them rotate out throughout the community, go to different areas so they can see, it's really not as bad as you think. I don't know, that's a tough one.
No, that's great. That's great.
It's really tough.
It's just kind of getting a feel for that. And last few questions here. If you can talk a little bit about so growing up as a millennial, how would you feel that your generation or our generation views these racial issues, especially as they're now kind of becoming front and center again, and commonly on our media, compared to generations that have come before, as well as the one that is now coming after? How would you say like if our view differs, is it different, or is it compared to other ones very similar, or maybe to the ones of your parents, like if their experience was maybe different?
I actually think history's starting to repeat itself, but I wouldn't say, the forms and the methods are different, but I feel as though history is repeating itself.
Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Of course, they had the sit-ins, being sprayed with the fire hoses, dogs sicked on them, and that was just back in the 50s. My parents were born in the 50s. So I know they probably saw it more, maybe more so my dad than my mom. He's from Detroit. So I'm pretty sure he saw it a lot more than my mom did. She is from Beaumont and grew up Louisiana, Beaumont area. So I'm pretty sure they saw a lot, but maybe my dad more so. But everything, all of the brutality that they faced back then, I feel it's coming full circle again now. It's just different. There is more gunplay now, whereas back then it was still physical, but it was more of like a mental torture, whereas now you're gone, a shoot to kill, no questions asked. And if we do ask questions, we're gonna ask after the fact. My time frame so far, I wanna say like in the last 10, 20 years, it's slowly started to get worse. Of course, early years, didn't really see it. Probably was blind to it because of my age. And then I spent most of my early years overseas, so didn't really know what was going on over here stateside. So it possibly was still going on, but I was overseas, so I didn't see it. But I want to say it kind of died down maybe a little bit, but it is definitely on the rise, and it feels as though it's the 50s, 60s all over again, just different.
And so, in light of all this, do you still feel hopeful for the future? And additionally, what contributes to that hope? Do you have a faith background that may contribute to it? Is it non-faith related? Does faith even play a part in that?
At times, I'm hopeful. And as soon as I get that little glimpse of hope, it seems as though something happens in the news and it's like, okay, here we go again. I just heard that there was a black gentleman who was shot to death by some cops just recently, maybe a couple of days ago, for being asleep in his car in the drive-thru. And they were trying to wake him up. Supposedly, he had a gun in his lap, and he was asleep in the drive-thru. And when he finally came to, they said that he reached for the gun. But I know me, when I'm startled, I'm like, my hands just, just fly or whatever. And they loaded over around 20 bullets in his car, and he was dead. And I saw a video of it from the interview, and you don't hear the officer saying anything until after all the shots are fired, saying, "Show me your hands." Who can show you their hands after that many bullets went through the car? So my hope of things changing for the better diminished once I saw that again. And it's like, it's gonna take a lot for there to be some change, and it has to be not just one person wanting the change. It has to be a lot of people wanting the change. We need the change. I do believe in God. I haven't been in church as much as I used to, but I do believe in God. If it's meant to happen, it will. Of course, it's not going to be on the time frame that I want it to happen. It's all in His timing. So that keeps a little bit of faith there, but it's hard to keep the faith when you see this every other day, every other week, someone's killed for nothing, and then you find out later on, oh, well, it was an accident. Well, it's not an accident that you killed this person. What's going to happen to the officer? Oh, they're on paid leave. For what? They committed murder. Like, that's not fair. Not at all.
The last question I've got is, how do you feel about telling the story today, and maybe your basic takeaways from it, maybe going forward with approaching or kind of encountering different experiences that may come forth, whether you read about them or whether you experience them firsthand. So yeah, just general reflections on being able to tell your story here today.
I feel good telling it. Not a lot of people know about it. I don't really think anyone really knew about it. Some of my friends joke around and say I'm an Oreo. I'm black on the outside, white on the inside, because I grew up suburban. I wasn't really on the bad side of town, but that still doesn't and didn't discriminate me from being discriminated against. They didn't know what my upbringing was, and I still got discriminated against. Still do. But it makes me stronger. I learn from it and keep it pushing and try and instill these things on my children, especially my girls. Like, hey, it's 10 times harder for us because this is a male-dominated world. So we gotta be 10 times better than them. Like the old commercial, anything you can do, I can do better. But as far as when it comes to the race and bringing awareness, this is something that not too many people like to talk about. As far as like your own personal things, we'll talk about someone else's story if we've heard it, but when it comes down to my story, nah, that wasn't me. I didn't experience that. Or it's almost like we're ashamed of it, but at the same time we want to fight for it so bad. But I guess it's more of we don't know where to start. And the first step is to talk about it. You just got to tell your story and keep telling it. Tell it till they say, okay, I don't want to hear it no more. And then still keep telling it. That's basically how I feel about it.
Well, no, thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we may not have gotten to, or something you feel that might be worthwhile in mentioning, or anything like that? I'll kind of leave that. Or any takeaways that you'd like?
There was another cop. He was actually a black cop. I want to say it was a couple months after this first incident. I was on my way to Fort Hood to go visit my uncle, and when he pulled me over, of course my driver's license has my address for here in San Antonio. It doesn't have, out there in Belton or Killeen or that area. And he was like, well, what are you doing out here? Again, parking sticker shows the school that I go to. I was like, I'm out here for school, but I'm on my way to go visit my uncle. Okay, well, what school do you go to? You've already inspected my car. You see the sticker. I go to UMHB. Okay, but why are you going to Fort Hood? I'm going to go visit my uncle. I've already told you like 3 times already. Dressed like that. Now, mind you, I was not dressed inappropriate. I had on jeans and a flowered shirt. And he was like, "You're going dressed like that?" Yeah, I don't see what's wrong with my outfit. Like, what's the deal? Are you gonna write me a ticket or not? Because this is ridiculous. You're questioning me again about why I'm here, why I'm 2 hours away from my place of residence, when I clearly told you that I attend the school 20 minutes back the opposite direction, and I'm headed 20 minutes up the road to go visit a family member. And I'm giving you proof of everything that you're asking me, yet you're still hounding me about this. Like, that was the weirdest one for me yet. As well, just the fact that he was questioning me. I'm like, why? Why would you question me? One, you pulled me over. Yes, I know I was speeding, so I took that ticket. I knew that part. But all the other questions had nothing to do with me speeding. Nothing at all.
And how did that make you feel versus when you had the experience with the other officer? Was he a white?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did that make you feel?
With the white officer, I was terrified because of the situation. With the black officer, I was a little more at ease because it was a black officer. But then once those questions came up, it was like, why are you hounding me? I'm answering you with respect, but I guess because I was going to Fort Hood, Fort Hood has its own stereotypes and stigmas. So I guess because of that, that's why he was asking those questions. But I never said anything to make him think that I was. I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but I wasn't giving him, those type of answers. I'm going to go see my uncle and my cousins. My aunt is stationed there. She's TDY right now, but my uncle and my cousins stay off post. I'm not going on post, but I just say Fort Hood because I don't always remember Killeen. At the time, didn't always remember Killeen. So Fort Hood, going to Fort Hood. So I don't know. But with the white officer, it was fear, terrified. The black officer initially was like, okay, I'm scared still because I'm getting a ticket and I got to tell my parents about this. I'm finna get fussed out for that. But it was like, okay, cool. It's someone I can relate to versus, okay, what are they thinking? What do I need to do? What can I say and not say? How can I move my hands? I talk with my hands. Do I need to sit on my hands? Is he gonna think something? That was the main difference between those two.